Listen, while they figure out what to do with Diddy, we're gonna go to the next video, man, and check out some things no human is supposed to see. Now, I know the Diddy thing is a little random, but that's what's happening in the world right now, bro. But let's check this out.
Humans have an innate thirst for the unknown. However, there are things that we're better off not knowing. From a cursed skull to an endless hole, here are 20 things humans were never meant to see. Number 20. What the universe actually looks like. The universe is beautiful. The first ever photo we've seen captured from space looks something like this. Captured in 1946 by rocket-borne cameras riding on a V-2 missile launched from the White Sands Missile Range, this photo is far from the ones we see today. You see, the universe doesn't really look like the colorful images you see. It doesn't look like this.
I don't know, I just looked at a video from SpaceX and looking at their view when they did the spacewalk, their view of what the planet looked like, it's something to see, bro. Go check that out.
This. Rather, it looks a bit similar to this photo captured in 1946. When we see breathtaking images of space from NASA, like the ones from the Hubble or James Webb space telescopes, it's not the same thing you'd see if you look at it from outer space. Telescopes like Hubble and James Webb don't capture images in full color. This is because many of the wavelengths these telescopes observe, like infrared or ultraviolet, are invisible to our eyes. That's why NASA uses false colors to distinguish these wavelengths from one another. Red, green, and blue are added to the raw colors which created these stunning photos that reveal details about the universe that wouldn't be visible to us otherwise. For example, in images of nebulae, scientists might assign red to regions where hydrogen is present, green for oxygen, and blue for sulfur. These colorized maps allow astronomers to study different elements and processes like star formation or supernova remnants that we simply couldn't detect with the naked eye. This just means that despite our advancement, the human eye will never be capable of truly seeing the universe. It's something humans are never meant to see. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 19. What's hidden beneath the sand? From outer space, let's take a look at the things here on Earth that you're better off not knowing. Ever wondered what lies beneath the sand? You'd be surprised. This man poked holes in the sand and scattered salt all over it. Wait for it. What you're looking at are razor clams. But why are these creatures crawling to the surface when salt is scattered? Razor clams are highly sensitive to changes in salinity. When you pour salt into their burrow, it alters the concentration of salt around them, tricking the clam into thinking the tide has changed, which makes them panic and shoot up to the surface to avoid the salt. Unfortunately for these creatures, humans use this reflex of theirs to catch them easily. After all, razor clams are a popular seafood delicacy, prized for their sweet, tender meat in many places in the world. Number 18.
Razor, where do you get that at? I've never seen that on a menu. Even at those little expensive, I've never seen razor clams. Now watch, next time I go out, somebody gonna have it. That's usually how life works. But has anybody can anybody verify or vouch that they've seen it and or tasted it? I'm super curious. Never heard that before.
The robot with living human skin cells. This isn't CGI. This thing that looks like something straight out of a nightmare is a robot that's made out of real human skin. The future is now, folks. This creepy robot is part of a research project at the University of Tokyo, where scientists have created a robot with lab-grown, self-healing human skin. It sounds like something a mad scientist would do, but this project, as bizarre as it sounds, can actually help a lot of people in the future. The project focuses on giving robots human-like appearances and self-repair capabilities, which could revolutionize industries from medical to manufacturing. So how does this work? The skin is made from layers of human cells, including fibroblasts and keratinocytes, which are typically found in our skin. These cells are grown on a robot's surface, meaning the skin is integrated right onto the robot's face, forming a seamless, flexible cover. If the skin gets cut or damaged, it can heal itself, similar to how human skin heals after a wound. The researchers use a special technique to make the skin adhere to the robot's face. They create tiny V-shaped perforations in the skin to apply a collagen gel, which binds the skin to the robot's surface, much like ligaments bind the skin to muscle in the human body. This means that as the robot's face moves, whether it's smiling, frowning, or making more complex expressions, the skin can move naturally without tearing. The technology has significant potential in medical research, especially in the fields of plastic surgery and burn treatment. By testing how lab-grown skin behaves, scientists could better develop ways to heal human skin. While this gives off an uncanny valley effect, it's a project that would undoubtedly revolutionize the medical field in the future. Number 7.
I don't know how I feel about that. Y'all talking about the capabilities and all, and be that as it may, the capabilities of healing human skin. I'm cool with that. But that ain't what that sounds like to me, or at least that ain't what I took from it in the beginning. I felt like these robots are already gonna take jobs. It sounded like to me almost y'all trying to make them so much human. Like are y'all trying to get them to replace us? I don't know why I got that feeling, but I normally pay attention to certain feelings, and that's one I'm gonna continue to monitor. That sounds like they want to replace us, bro.
17. Long worm hidden beneath the sand. Back to the ocean. If razor clams didn't spook you, then perhaps worms will. The next time you're walking at the beach, just remember that there's a chance there are beach worms hiding beneath the sand. Beneath the sandy beach, especially in coastal regions like Australia, are beach worms. As nightmarish as they look, many people like to lure them out. To do so, you'll need a bit of bait like fish or peepees, which is waved close to the surface. The scent of the bait draws the worms out just far enough for you to grab them carefully with your fingers or a baiting tool. Once you've caught them, beach worms make highly effective bait for catching a variety of fish species like whiting, bream, and flathead. The next time you go to the beach, why not try to see these creatures? If you're brave enough, that is. Number 16. The bottom of Mels Hole. Perhaps you've heard about Mels Hole before. This is allegedly an endless depth hidden in the United States. First brought to public attention in 1997 on Coast to Coast AM, a radio show dedicated to paranormal topics, a gentleman named Mel Waters claimed to have discovered a mysterious hole on his property near Ellensburg, Washington. He argued that this pit was bottomless. According to Waters, the hole was at least 80,000 feet deep, based on the amount of fishing line he had lowered into it without hitting the bottom. The locals, Waters said, had been using it as a dumping ground for everything from garbage to deceased animals. But no matter how much was thrown in, it was never filled up. But it seems like it's not just an ordinary hole. Waters claimed that there have been times when lifeless animals thrown into the hole would come back to life. The hole was said to emit strange energy, cause radios to malfunction, and even affect the behavior of nearby animals. The story got even more tangled when Waters claimed the U.S. government intervened. After he began sharing his story, he reported being visited by government officials who offered him large sums of money to lease his land. Soon after, Waters claimed he was barred from accessing the area altogether. Although largely dismissed as a hoax, many people have attempted to locate the bottomless pit. Unfortunately, no one has succeeded so far. Number 15. Creatures of the deep. Deep in the ocean's darkest depths, lurking far beyond human reach, lives one of the most elusive and eerie creatures ever recorded, the Magna squid, also known as the bigfin squid. With tentacles that can stretch up to 20 feet long and distinct elbow-like bends, this creature is unlike anything else in the deep sea. It's been seen fewer than 20 times, mostly by remotely operated vehicles or ROVs exploring the inky black depths of the ocean, often more than 15,000 feet below the surface. This creature is truly unlike anything we've seen before. Its long, thin arms dangle down like ghostly strands, with some estimates putting its total length at 40 feet. Aside from their monstrous appearance, scientists still know very little about this species. It's speculated that the squid uses its long tentacles to either sweep the seafloor for prey or passively trap small organisms that drift into its appendages. This squid has never been captured alive, so most of what we know comes from grainy footage. The bigfin squid is just one example of the monstrous creatures that inhabit the deep. Who knows? Perhaps the undiscovered creatures living down there in the deep blue are far more monstrous than we think. Number 14. Amphipods in the Mariana Trench have traces of plastic in their stomachs. Did you know that scientists have discovered traces of plastic in human bodies? Plastic seems to have also reached the deepest parts of the ocean, depths that no human has ever reached. Recently, researchers discovered amphipods, tiny crustaceans found at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest point in the ocean. The problem is that researchers noticed something odd with these creatures: traces of plastic particles in their stomachs. Amphipods, living nearly 7 miles beneath the ocean's surface, consume organic debris that drifts down from higher waters. Unfortunately, along with food particles, these creatures also seem to be ingesting microplastics that have somehow reached the ocean. In one study, researchers from Newcastle University found that every amphipod sampled from the Mariana Trench contained plastic fibers such as nylon and polyethylene, commonly used in everything from plastic bags to clothing. These synthetic materials have become so prevalent in the ocean that even creatures in one of the most remote places on Earth can't escape them. The study suggests that microplastics are likely present in nearly every marine ecosystem, even in places as isolated and extreme as the Challenger Deep. Well, this was something scientists hoped they would never see. Number 13.
And the bad thing about it is what people fail to realize is most of us eat what? Different fish and things out of the ocean, right? And if those things got that stuff and it's gotten all into their stomachs, their bodies, they're all over, who else is going to spread back to? And it's our fault that those plastics are in there. So it's one big circle. They eat it, we eat them, we got it in us. Like, that's the way I think about it, at least.
The island dominated by snakes. Off the coast of Brazil, there's an island that's so dangerous the government has made it illegal to visit. This means that no human, save for a selected few, would be able to step foot on this island. Known as Snake Island, this place is home to thousands of the world's most venomous snakes, the golden lancehead pit vipers. With their venom, most people would refuse to step foot in this place, even if it's not restricted. These snakes, which can grow up to 18 inches, possess venom so potent it can end the life of a person in less than an hour. Thousands of years ago, the rising water level trapped these snakes on this island. With no ground prey available, the species adapted to hunt migratory birds. And for that, they needed more potent venom, one that's 5 times stronger than those on the mainland. And so, only select researchers and the Brazilian Navy, who occasionally visit to maintain the lighthouse, are allowed on the island. Number 12.
If it's just snakes, why don't we just torch it, bro? Why don't we just torch that island, that whole island? Just do away with it, man. Like, no, bro. I don't even want people to accidentally go there and end up there or land there and be stranded. No, just torch that island. Let's just scrap that one and find a different one.
The Rainbow Valley. Don't let the name fool you. As lively as its name sounds, the Rainbow Valley is a place you would never want to see with your own eyes. Located in the death zone on the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, this place is named after the colorful array of jackets, gear, and tents scattered across the snow, left behind by fallen climbers. This section of Everest is littered with over 200 bodies, frozen and preserved in the bitter cold. Many climbers tragically succumb to altitude sickness, exhaustion, or falls in the death zone, where oxygen levels are a third of what they are at sea level. The conditions make it nearly impossible to retrieve the bodies. It's too dangerous and costly to attempt recovery, and so the remains are left as grim markers. Well, the Rainbow Valley doesn't sound so dreamy once you hear the backstory, doesn't it? Number 11. One of the biggest holes on the planet. This isn't CGI, and neither is this photo digitally edited. You're looking at one of the most enormous pits on the planet, the Mirny mine in Siberia. This massive open-pit diamond mine, also known as the Peace Pipe, reached an unbelievable depth of 1,722 feet and spans over half a mile wide, making it the second largest man-made hole in the world, next to the Super Kola borehole. Discovered in 1955 by Soviet geologists, The mine quickly became the heart of the USSR's diamond production, supplying around 10 million carats of diamonds annually at its peak. Of these, about 20% were gem quality, a significant amount that contributed to the global diamond market. Located in the extreme climate of Siberia, workers had to battle through permafrost using everything from jet engines to dynamite just to dig through the frozen ground. During its operation, the Mirny mine produced an estimated $13 billion worth of diamonds, solidifying Russia's place as a major player in the diamond industry. In 2004, however, this mine finally closed as upkeep and flooding became impossible to manage. Do you know what's terrifying about this pit, though? It's the fact that the Mirny mine can create an intense vortex that's strong enough to suck in helicopters into the pit. For this reason, flying overhead the Mirny mine isn't permitted. Number 10. Just a speck of dust in the universe. You might wonder what you're looking at. This photo might not look like anything, but it's actually a photo of our planet. Yes, you heard that right. This is the pale blue dot, a photograph of Earth taken on February 14, 1990 by the Voyager 1 space probe when it was 3.7 billion miles away from our planet. The pale blue dot you see? That's us. Astronomer Carl Sagan requested the image, whose advocacy touched NASA, resulting in the administration commissioning this photo. Carl Sagan believed that the pale blue dot represents humanity's minuscule and ephemeral place amidst the cosmos. Earth, home to every human who ever lived, all our history, conflicts, and achievements, appear as just a faint blue pixel in the vastness of the cosmos. In his 1994 book, Pale Blue Dot, Sagan famously wrote that this image shows the need for humility. It shows how small and vulnerable our world is, a speck of life in the cosmos. Well, looking at our planet from this perspective truly is humbling. Number 9. The lost.
That's why I keep always reminding people or just reiterating that there's no way we can be alone. If we're just a speck, a mere crumb, a dot, a point in the grand scheme of things, bro. Like, you mean to tell me we're the only ones in all of this? It's not, nah. I just don't think it's possible, bro. It's more possible we haven't seen anybody else because this thing is so big, it's so huge. Like, that's more of a possibility than to just flat out say we're the only ones. We're the only humans. Earth has the only humans or ever life forms to ever exist. Only happen on Earth. Come on, man. I don't see it.
Lost cosmonauts. There are a lot of terrifying conspiracies in history, but the theory of the lost cosmonauts is one of the most bone-chilling. So much so that if it's true, perhaps we're better off not knowing. Yuri Gagarin's 1961 flight was historic. While Neil Armstrong was the first man to land on the moon, Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space. However, there are conspiracies that this wasn't the case. According to the lost cosmonauts theory, the Soviet Union may have sent cosmonauts into space before Yuri, but the missions were disasters, and the cosmonauts either perished in space or upon re-entry. One of the earliest sources of the theory came from Robert Heinlein, a science fiction writer, who claimed that Soviet cadets told him about a manned spaceflight in 1960 that ended in failure. This claim was bolstered by the Giudica Cordelia brothers, 2 amateur radio operators from Italy. They reported intercepting distress signals from doomed Soviet space missions, including one in which a female cosmonaut's desperate cries were allegedly recorded as her spacecraft malfunctioned and burned up upon re-entry. Despite these stories, there has been no verifiable evidence to support the existence of these missions. The Soviet government maintained tight control over information about its space program. If proof of this theory exists, well, it's never been seen by any man. Number 8. Yellow rain. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, refugees from Southeast Asia began reporting a mysterious yellow substance falling from the sky. Shortly after, plants, livestock, and even people experienced harrowing symptoms from sickness to death. This led to the theory that this yellow rain wasn't a simple natural phenomenon, but rather a planned chemical attack carried out by the Soviet Union. Initially, U.S. officials believed that yellow rain was a biological weapon made from mycotoxins. toxic compounds produced by certain fungi. However, upon further investigation, scientists, including Harvard biologist Matt Meselson, proposed a different explanation. The yellow substance was not a chemical weapon, but rather bee feces from rather large swarms of Asian honeybees.
Nah, I like the first theory, and that would also explain why they're trying to control the weather and be quiet and secretive about it. That would make a ton of sense as to what they're doing up there above the clouds.
However, when the number of people who perished or got sick after the yellow rain is taken into consideration, many are inclined to believe that the yellow rain was indeed not just an ordinary phenomenon caused by nature. Number 7. The bag of severed hands found in Russia. In March 2018, a fisherman near the city of Khabarovsk, Siberia, made an unsettling discovery along the Amur River, one that no one wants to stumble upon: a human hand. He found it lying on the icy ground. You can only imagine his terror when he discovered more hands hidden inside a bag nearby. He probably couldn't believe his eyes. The severed hands were organized into 27 matching pairs, and local investigators were quick to try and trace just where it came from. Many immediately theorized that perhaps the hands were the result of a serial killer on the loose, but others weren't convinced. Before more theories could be made, however, investigators ruled that the culprit was a nearby forensic laboratory. Russian officials stated that the hands were not linked to any criminal activity, but rather were the result of improper disposal by the lab, where they were likely kept after forensic examinations. Even so, some believe that this supposed truth is simply just a cover-up for the more disturbing truth behind these hands.
I believe cover-up, not the fact that they just accidentally not exposed, but disposed it there. Yeah, I don't believe y'all just accidentally did that. And I still question why y'all just got all these hands and where the people those hands are supposed to be connected to. What happened to them? That's the even better question. Where are the people that were connected to those hands?
Number 6. The alleged lost treasure of Rennes-le-Château. The story goes that in the late 1800s, a parish priest named Bérenger Saunière stumbled upon a treasure while renovating the local church of a small hilltop village in southern France. The priest didn't tell anyone about what he found. However, there were signs. Saunière's newfound riches allowed him to live lavishly, building a luxurious estate called Villa Bethania and commissioning mysterious renovations to the church, filled with bizarre symbols and hidden messages. These changes only fueled speculation that the priest had discovered something far more significant than gold, perhaps even secrets tied to the Knights Templar, the Cathars, or the Holy Grail itself. Yet even after his death, no trace of this supposed treasure was ever found, leaving many wondering if it has truly existed in the first place. Number 5. Absolute zero. Is it possible? Absolute zero is the lowest possible temperature in the universe. Theoretically, negative 273.15 degrees Celsius or 0 degrees Kelvin. At this point, all atomic motion comes to a near halt. But here's the mind-bending part. We can never truly reach absolute zero. Why? Because it's not just a number. It's a fundamental limit in physics that our universe just doesn't allow us to touch. In science, temperature is basically a measure of how much energy atoms and molecules have. If something is cold, the particles in it are moving slower. The colder it gets, the slower molecules move. Now, absolute zero is a point where these particles lose all kinetic energy and stop moving altogether. However, according to quantum mechanics, particles can never be completely still. Even at the brink of absolute zero, quantum effects such as zero-point energy cause atoms to retain a small amount of motion. Now we're in a dilemma. The closer we get to absolute zero, nature just seems to resist. Physicists can cool atoms to incredibly low temperatures, just a fraction of a degree above absolute zero, using techniques like laser cooling and magnetic traps. But as they push the temperature lower, extracting that last bit of energy becomes exponentially harder. Essentially, the more we try to cool a substance, the more energy we have to put in, making it impossible to reach zero. Reaching absolute zero would also defy the third law of thermodynamics, which states that it's impossible to remove all the energy from a system to reach this lowest point. Even the coldest spots in space, like the Boomerang Nebula, sit at about 1 Kelvin, still a fraction above zero. And so to this day we wonder, is absolute zero even something that mankind can grasp? Number 4. Quantum levitation. Yes, you saw that correctly. These disks just hovered above this flat surface. This is known as quantum levitation. Basically speaking, quantum levitation is simply levitation, except it's made possible by an object that has been cooled to extremely low temperatures they turn into superconductors, which means they can conduct electricity without resistance. In this state, they exhibit a fascinating property known as the Meissner effect, which repels magnetic fields. This magnetic repulsion is what allows the superconductor to lock itself in place within a magnetic field.
Looking at that thing, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, I'll never walk again. I'll be riding on one of those everywhere I go, bro. It's like a little hoverboard just without being on the ground with it, like just hovering around. Bro, fam, I'm riding that thing everywhere, bro.
Allowing it to float or levitate. The object isn't just floating freely, though. It's pinned in space as if locked in an invisible track, capable of moving smoothly and staying suspended as long as the conductors are maintained. However, while quantum levitation is spectacular in demonstrations, we're not at a point where it can be applied practically. At least, not yet. The major challenge is that superconductors only exhibit these properties at temperatures close to absolute zero, typically using liquid nitrogen or even colder substances. And again, absolute zero, for now, is something impossible for mankind, leaving quantum levitation nothing but an observed phenomenon. Number 3. Forbidden cheese. Can you really say that you're a cheese lover if you don't want to eat casu marzu? You're looking at one of the most daunting delicacies in the world. Think blue cheese is bad? Well, this just might make blue cheese more appealing. Casu marzu is unique among others because of the way it's processed. Known as the forbidden cheese of Sardinia, casu marzu is a traditional sheep's milk cheese that's taken to an extreme level of fermentation courtesy of live maggots. Yes, you heard that right. The cheese is deliberately infested with cheese fly larvae that accelerate the fermentation process, breaking down fats to create an incredibly soft, almost liquid texture. The maggots are essential to the creation of casu marzu. As they eat through the cheese, they excrete enzymes that contribute to the cheese's unique, rich flavor. The end result is a product that's so soft it can be spooned onto bread. This means you're technically eating cheese that has been secreted out by larvae. It's the cheese that you want, but some people choose to eat it with the larvae still wiggling inside. There's a reason why it's known as the forbidden cheese, and it's not only because of its strange fermentation process. You see, this delicacy is also literally forbidden by the European Union due to health risks. Even so, locals in Sardinia continue to enjoy this delicacy, going as far as creating their own since selling the cheese is forbidden. Number 2.
I don't see how y'all don't get sick. I was trying to focus my mind on everything. I'm looking over here. I'm looking over here. My phone, like, no. I didn't want, no. That's sick, bro. That's one of the most disgusting things. See?
The Screaming Skull of Burton Agnes. Anne Griffith was the youngest of 3 sisters who lived in Burton Agnes Hall, a famed grand Elizabethan manor in England's East Yorkshire. Now, the story goes that a long time ago, Anne passed after a robbery while she was walking near her home. Her sisters found her, but it was too late to save her. It was then that Anne made a request, a strange and bone-chilling request. She asked her sisters to remove her head after her death and keep it within the hall, as she could never rest peacefully until a part of her remained in her beloved home. Of course, many of us would think that this isn't a great idea. The skull really isn't a great centerpiece, is it? Even so, saddened by their sister's death, Anne's sisters honored her request. Needless to say, what followed later was terrifying. Mysterious disturbances began to plague the hall. Loud bangs, unexplained crashes, and eerie moaning filled the house. Servants fled in terror, and the haunting continued until Anne's skull was exhumed and placed inside the manor, where peace was finally restored. However, the legend insists that whenever the skull is removed, the strange noises and ghostly activity return. Over the years, the exact location of the skull has become a mystery, with some suggesting it was hidden within the walls to prevent its removal. Visitors to Burton Agnes Hall still report strange occurrences, leading many to believe that the skull is still somewhere nearby. However, it's something that no one should ever see again. And now, it's time for today's topic. Camera caught something no human is supposed to see. Do you believe in telepathy or sixth sense? Well, this camera allegedly captured a time when someone predicted what would happen. This man was watching these people pulling some stunts when he came over and warned them about an injury, and alas, it really happened. There have been several times in history when people claim they have the power of telepathy, ESP, or clairvoyance, like famed American psychic Gene Dixon, but many people dismiss their claims as something fabricated. Do you really think a human can wield such powers? Perhaps you have an incident where your gut accurately predicted that something bad would happen. If so, let me know what you think in the comments. Number 1. The haunted island of Poveglia. Not far from Venice, Italy, is one of the most haunted places in the world, Poveglia Island. The island's grim story began in the 18th century when it became a quarantine station during one of Europe's many plague outbreaks. Those affected were forcibly sent to Poveglia, which was, rather than a place of refuge, the final resort. No one extended help to those who had been thrown on this island. Many of the people were sent to the island, knowing that it would be their deathbed. Living people weren't the only ones sent to the island, even lifeless bodies. It's estimated that up to 160,000 people may have perished on the island, and with little space, it was treated as a mass grave. The island continued to serve as a quarantine station through multiple outbreaks of the plague. However, Poveglia's grim history didn't end here. In the early 20th century, a psychiatric hospital was built on the island. This hospital became notorious for rumored experiments and mistreatment of its patients, and local lore even tells of a doctor who conducted unethical lobotomies before being driven mad by the ghosts of his victims. Since the hospital closed in 1968, Poveglia has remained abandoned. Though the island is officially off limits, a few brave visitors who have ventured there report eerie experiences, from seeing ghostly figures to hearing unsettling cries echoing through the ruins. Today, we can only hope that Poveglia's dark history will be put to an end indefinitely. There really are a lot of terrifying things in this world that we're better off not knowing. But hey, where's the fun in that?